Okay, I'll get started. Um, so in case you didn't already know, the gem 5 25.0 was released last month. All in all, I think it was quite a successful release actually. I think we spent more time uh, than we usually do on testing. We really, uh, and I think that kind of shows because there wasn't actually I received no angry emails from anyone saying that the new release of Gem 5 was horrifically broken and I needed to be go out and fix it immediately. Uh, which is always a good thing. Uh, so yes, if you haven't already, please download that. And if you want to tell me I'm wrong, it is actually incredibly broken. I'll at least welcome that as stuff I need to work on. Gen 5 workshop was held at,
Bobby,
yep,
uh, on that note, someone pushed something, I think it was Matt Sinclair,
yeah,
um, pushed something that needed to be a hot fix.
yeah.
Did we get that
I've
returned?
got a slide. I've got a slide on that uh,
Okay.
coming up. Gen 5 workshop was held at ISCA. From what I hear from Jason, it was actually quite well attended, and I got a couple of emails from people saying that it really was a worthwhile workshop for them to attend. Right now, the recordings of the presentations have been uploaded to the Jam 5 YouTube channel. I'm working on getting the slides, and some of the attendees are going to write blog posts to the Jam 5 website about what they presented. So more materials to come, but all the talks were successfully recorded. If you want to do that. And kind of sorry to everyone who was expecting a different time this month. I forgot we agreed on that last month. Uh, so starting next month, August, we will have this at a different time, whatever time works better for people in East Asia. So almost certainly late California time. Um, I'll figure that out. So again, sorry for people who wanted to attend this month but can't work at this time. This will be if you if you weren't here last week, we're going to move the meetings at different times every month, just to in fairness to people who live at different parts of the world. Um, oh, so Jennifer, today I'm going to talk about the upcoming hotfix and basically ask if anyone's got any other fixes they've fixed in 25.0 that they want to get in, because I do like to bundle fixes together and not have too many fix releases, but there's definitely some stuff that needs to get in. I'm going to use this opportunity to just ask, and I'm going to tread so lightly here because I don't want it going too long, what the goal is of the Clang formatting PR, uh, just so I understand. And then I'm going to go on to planning for the 25.1 release of Jam 5. Um, that's that. Well, I'll get there and get there. But also soliciting what the community wants from us, you guys, and if there's any big ticket items uh, anyone here is aware of that will be coming into the Jam 5 project over the next 3 or 4 months. So, as Jason said, there was this wasn't pushed by Matt, but it was a GPU fix. I don't fully understand it, but it is going to be a hot fix. It's a PR2436. We agreed that's going to be a hot fix to Gem 5. And there's also another one, if you're aware of Gem 5's loop point capabilities, there's a fix to that as well. So right now I'm bundling that as 25.0.0.1. Does anyone want to jump in right now? And because I did look through the PRs to see if there's anything else. I have a hotfix arm I can send in tomorrow. Great, Giacomo. I'll take it. If you can get that in the next day, I can get the hotfix in tomorrow and have all three of these fixes in. And if anyone else finds anything that needs fixed, yeah, no big disaster if you miss the boat, because I'll inevitably push another hotfix if needed. But it's nice to not have it's overhead every time I need to do it. So it's nice just to get that all and bundle them up. No one else had anything to say on that? Cool. Thank you for these two fixes. Uh, Very quickly, Giacomo, can I just pick your brain for like 2 minutes? Are we like what is your I'm willing to go along with anything. I'm not really got I don't really feel like I got a position, but I'm just kind of confused. What is the goal with the Clang formatting PR right now, and what are we doing with it?
So actually, if it's fine, because Richard, which is here
Mm.
online, is the person who actually, my colleague who made the PR.
Mm.
I don't know if he actually wants to explain it to himself.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, I think from my point of view, the original intention was just to have something that gem5 developers could run locally to automatically do some of the code formatting to an agreed style. And then that would then go into normal code review, and if there's any tweaks that are wanted, that could be still be applied.
That's kind of basically my understanding as well. So just to clarify, there's nothing, because I was playing around with the PR and I realized that the Git Clang format really can't at least be very easily, or maybe not at all, integrated into our CI system. So it's really only a local test people can run and easily bypass if they want. Is that correct? Is that
Yes, not even a test actually. It's a tool that gets run to actually apply the formatting. So
I understood the pre-commit part. That's all fine. It's just
so
it's
with
not
a wrapper script, it is possible to run it on the CI side, we think. So I pushed an extra patch to the PR that's got the wrapper script that will let you run it on the CI side, apply it to the last checked in commit, or by providing a hash of a commit to a whole PR. I'm not exactly sure how you'd integrate that on the GitHub Actions side. I haven't used GitHub Actions before.
I don't think there's a neat solution, because obviously just doing it on the last commit in a PR isn't doing it on the diff of the PR.
No, you can get it to work, assuming you can get the right hash out of the GitHub API. You'll be able to run it on a whole set of commits.
Yeah, but the only way to do that is to basically get compare it to the develop branch and then do that. If anyone can figure out and sit down and get the script for me, I'm happy to put it in. But I fiddled around with it, and it just seemed like if it was possible, it's going to be a lot of work. And
I feel like
I was debating whether it was worth my time to bother doing.
Bobby, you could probably get Copilot or Claude to write that code for you. That's not something you should have to write.
Fair.
Can I just chime in just for a second, just to clarify? Most of the code is actually already provided by Richard. So the reason why he revived the option 2 is because we realized that while Git Clang format was running locally, the GitHub action, which is just simply calling pre-commit, was actually not calling Git Clang format on anything. But there is still a way to force pre-commit to basically run Git Clang format. What you need to do, because Git Clang format requires to analyze, scrutinize, not a file, but to scrutinize a commit, you basically need to provide the hash of the base commit. So basically, Richard, what he did is he took the script he already developed, and he basically added an option to basically make to trigger Git Clang format from pre-commit. And the only thing,
I mean, I'm at the stage now, I find it very complicated trying to figure this out. If you can push a patch and you can demonstrate it's working, it's a thumbs up for me. I just ran into various problems when I tried to figure it out. Particularly the problem with, what if I have 10 commits and each one of them has changes that need to have the formatter applied and they override each other. How do I manage that and actually, and how do I compare it to the develop branch and use
okay, let's split this into two different things. I think that the PR is probably fine. Having the pre-commit that we can give a hash is fine. We can definitely figure out how in GitHub Actions to iterate through all of the commits in the PR. That's not a problem. That's just an AI can do it for us, I'm sure. I have a different issue, which I thought that the goal of Clang format was to make things easier for both developers and reviewers by removing the wasted time that reviewers spend saying your style is wrong, and remove the wasted time of developers having to go back and update their code because of style. But it sounds like what we're saying is we're still going to have to review for style, and we're still going to ask developers to rebase their change and change the style.
Not really, actually, because not really, because the reason why so most of the comments that were made by Bobby were for the fact that the GitHub action was actually not running git clang format. If you basically pass the hash of the commit, basically the moment you run the PR and the CI starts, it will basically fail, and basically similarly to what Black does. So you basically can say as a reviewer, hey, listen, this is failing, you need to install git clang format. And just so you know, like you can have the same output even if you use Clang format and not git clang format.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. We can figure out the pre-commit thing. I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is what I want the outcome of this, like when this change is merged, I want to see no comments on any PRs ever saying this style is wrong. I'm fine with having like other PRs saying like, let's update our style. That's okay. But I just don't want to ever see comments on PRs saying update the style.
But that's impossible even with Clang format, because Clang, and when I'm saying Clang format, I mean the original idea of basically hooking up Clang format with pre-commit. Because if I basically do git commit -n, I basically avoid the pre-commit run. So it is theoretically possible to push some code that avoids the running of Clang format.
And that's where our CI test should reject that.
Yeah,
and a reviewer, like that should be, a reviewer should never have to say your style is wrong.
Yeah, and the same will happen with Richard PR. Basically, the CI will fail.
I think Jackman was basically saying that he is confident that he can get the CI system working like it works and everything else. I think it's going to be harder than is advertised, and therefore I'm more in Jason's camp. This will put on his bit.
Honestly, most
merge the PR. Merge the PR. I will take the action item to figure out how to get this to work in GitHub Actions.
Are you sure you have the time?
I will find the time. I'll do it this weekend. I really don't think it's going to take more than 30 minutes.
Okay. I wish you well. I wish you the best. When I was going through it, I kind of just wanted to go back to the other option, do the whole code base at once.
I really want to stop having discussions about style.
I mean, same here. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. My understanding of this was therefore correct, and I cleared out this item. So right now, me and Aaron are planning for 25.1. So gem5, we kind of have basically 2 major releases a year. They're typically obviously summer and one normally near the end of the year. And I guess on a kind of good note, I feel like this is the first release where I sit down and I'm really not sure. I really feel like we've knocked off a lot of stuff that I really wanted to get done in Gem5 in maybe the last year and a half. And now I'm sitting wondering like what is actually needing done now. I'll go through very quickly the kind of things that me and Aaron were talking about at a high level, but you don't have to chime in now. We don't have to necessarily have big discussions this meeting if people still don't think about it. But it would be helpful to have some sort of agenda of what we want to get in over the next, how many months, 4 or 5 months. Early December, meaning we'll probably have the staging branch somewhere in, well, no later than mid-November. So I personally want to focus on this release and making Gem5 more modular, which is a big architectural change. Though that is dependent on a lot of other things kind of falling in line. It would probably also coincide with updating the build system, which I think I'm about to talk to Jason about a bit more. Aaron's currently working on and I believe, Giacomo, you've made a comment to this effect in a PR recently of kind of performance regression testing. You know, does this change may not make a functional difference to your simulation, but it changes the outputted stats or the simulation time and catching these things more early. I saw your comment, Giacomo, about having it as a verifier on tests, which we haven't properly looked into yet, but it's definitely something we're thinking about. Better code, better testing coverage metrics and understanding which test covers what and maybe streamlining our testing infrastructure through that. I think we are massively redundant with some of our tests, especially the ones that just boot gem5 over and over and over again to test only slightly different things in the code base. So definitely more targeted, getting more data on that. I think this is something we're probably going to drop because every time I bring it up, no one seems interested anymore. But at some point, about 6 months ago, we were having discussions about a kind of fault injection framework for gem5, which, I mean, it literally didn't get much beyond that phrase, but something to simulate components or components in a system failing at a certain probability over time and how errors can cascade through systems. At the time, it aligned with some people's research agenda. I don't think it does anymore. I guess I'm just saying that in case it does, and this would be worth someone's time because we have talked about this a bit and it's still on our kind of sprint charts. We still, I guess me and Erin are still talking a lot about how to extend the hypercalls and using multisim to launch multiple Gem5 simulations. My R in our group is kind of hacking Gem5 to also have it so you can launch Gem5 on different systems, so through a cluster of machines and run your experiments that way in an organized fashion. So yeah, basically a grander orchestration framework for Gem5 and how you manage multiple Gem5 processes. I also am quite keen to use this opportunity to also update the documentation and the examples in Gem5. My radical idea here is I kind of want to get rid of, or not necessarily get rid, but transform a lot of what's in the configs directory into a Gem5 cookbook, a series of examples that do various things, precise things, step by step by step, and as like proper, well-structured tutorials on how to do things, and build up our tutorial infrastructure from there. I think right now, a lot of these examples clearly were intended to be like that. They were examples of how to do things. But as I mentioned many times, it also kind of became interfaces to how to run Gem5. They're not really, people don't go through the example, they take the example and run it and say, oh, why doesn't this do exactly what I wanted for my simulation? So I think, yeah, Gem5 cookbook. I'm not sure if anyone here remembers cookbooks, but not like, anyway.
I think we're almost all of us here are old enough to remember the O'Reilly cookbooks.
I just hope no one was implying that I've never like thinking of a real cookbook, like a recipe book. I'm aware that they still exist. Yeah, O'Reilly. Oh, that's those covers are always like birds or turtles or something. Yeah, classic. I'm almost at the end of my list here. Actually, I'm at the end of my list. Well, I guess I have a bit more here that in terms of the modularization of Gem5, my key idea here is I want to decouple sim objects from the core simulation framework. I want there to be really, unless you're doing something to actually change the simulator, I want people to not have to continually recompile that code and just compile individual sim objects and dynamically link them into the simulation infrastructure. I have not sat down and tried to figure out how I do this, but this is the grand idea. Daniel has done most of the work on this. I think I just need to get it over the line, but we're basically got 99% of an infrastructure up to do unit testing for individual sim objects. That's kind of where I want to go with Gem5 as well. People contribute sim objects or clusters of sim objects, all work in some domain. They distribute them, you can compile them individually and dynamically link them into already compiled Gem5 simulator core library. That's my radical idea for Gem5. Erin, am I missing anything major here, or did I cover all the major things?
I think you probably got everything.
Okay, good. Yeah, you're normally very good at telling me that I missed out something major that we talked about, but yes. So I thought I'll just take a 15-second break there if anyone wants to jump in and talk about anything regarding the 25.1 release.
So I'll say, as far as the build system and also a little bit the modularity, I think that the short term, I don't know what we want to promise for 25.1, but what I envision is this release being a lot of cleanup, of trying to do some decoupling, fix the circular headers, get some things that have undergone some bit rot and aren't up to the standards of what either things like CMake or Bazel expect, and update those. And that's like the set of PRs that I pushed a couple weeks ago, was really just taking things that have been done internally to bring things up to certain standards and pushing them externally. So I kind of just see most of the short-term things not having any impact on what our build system is or how you build or use Gem5, but just getting things ready to, whenever we do want to have that conversation, it's not going to be 100 commits to do all the cleanup plus all the new build system, but it would just be the new build. That's kind of my vision with that over the next few months.
Yeah, I think you're paying off some of the technical debt we've accumulated over the past 20 years. I think I think that's broadly my kind of vision as well. But I remember there was something I didn't mention on my list. I do want to get the power modeling code in. Matt's in this call. Matt Sinclair. Well, if not,
Sinclair's not in this call.
Oh yeah. Well, so that's actually is a feature I want to get in, just so I mentioned that. But yes, I'm completely comfortable this being a back-end infrastructure scaffolding, strengthening the support and foundation of Gem5 release, because I think we talk about that a lot. We never somehow get around to it.
Giacomo, you were unmuted for a second.
Yeah, so I think there are a few things about the modularity I think we already discussed. First of all, like on a technical point of view, I think I already stressed that in the past when we were discussing about the build system and the shared libraries, Gem5 was much more modular before kconfig, oddly speaking. Not that the kconfig is wrong, actually. I mean, if done right, kconfig is actually quite cool. What I'm saying is, what Gabe did in order to basically introduce kconfig, he basically removed a bit of dependency tracking between sim objects. So while at the moment, if you basically change a sim object source file, you're not recompiling everything. But if you're introducing a new sim object, or you're changing something in the sim object file, in the Python sim object file, you are probably regenerating all the sort of parameter header files for every sim object, if I recall correctly. But this is something that we didn't have in the past. Like in the past, we were able to track dependencies, and if I was basically modifying.
So I think, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I don't, as far as the modularity goes, I kind of don't want to have a deep discussion about that today. We need to have a design doc. We need to explain the motivation behind it. And I think an explicit not motivation is compile time. That is not a motivation behind it. There are other motivations, but I don't think today is the right day to have that discussion.
Okay, so the other thing was less technical, I would say. So I know when we talk about modularity of Gem5, we bring also along the sort of build system revamp.
Hmm.
I think it would be really nice if we could decouple, if possible, the two topics.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
otherwise we are not, we are gonna end up making wrong decisions if we basically use a build system to fix something that could be fixed anyway differently in another build system.
I think for me,
Yeah,
I think for me, the main thing is I think knowing what the build system is a little bit of a prerequisite for how we want to, like, if
So
I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I think scones enforces a lot of the coupling that we have, and I need to know that we can eventually get rid of that, or we have got rid of that by the time I start working on decoupling them.
I don't know, it could be, but honestly, like the coupling we're doing, like the one I mentioned, I don't want to get too technical, but the one I mentioned is not really about scones per se, is the header generation bit that we will have to do anyway if we basically, it's not the scones backbone.
I do agree
that
with you. I guess for me, I just need to know what's it going to be, when's it going to be in, so I can work around it or work with it or whatever the situation is. But it does make sense to have these things roughly the same time, though, I think, because they're never going to impact one another.
Yeah, so my goal in the next few months, and so this, I might have bigger goals for the next release, but my goal in the next few months is to do things that would help both changing the build system and potentially making it more modular. So that in a few months, once we've come up with some design docs for one or the other, the scaffolding is already there to make it easier to do it. Does that make sense, Giacomo?
Yeah, sure. There's
So
another...
an example being like, there's some things in base. I'm blanking on exactly what, but like, I don't know, the ELF file like depends on something in sim, which depends on a bunch of things in base, which depend on the ELF file handling, which is a silly dependence that we don't need, that could be broken. And so I'm going to be looking for things like that, that are dependencies that we don't really need, that can be broken, that I can try to fix. That should be just generally reducing our tech debt.
And despite me always bringing it up, I really, really don't want to be bogged down about what the new builds, how the new build system is going to work, or how it should work, or whatever. It's just kind of something that I just, I'm more on the side of I just want to know what it is and how it works and how I can work with it.
And I guess the other bit there is, I mean, in some of the things that I pushed, like changing the stuff in the build, what is it, the build utils or whatever that directory is, build tools. You know, that Gabe actually did pull a lot of that stuff out of scones, which was useful, into just general Python files. And so I'm kind of taking the next step there and just making those a little bit more generic so that they can be executed from some tool instead of having to run within our scones framework. So those kinds of things are what I'm aiming for.
I honestly 100% agree. I think it's I'm quite sure that Gabe did a good job there, but there's probably lots of stuff that could be pulled out of scones, and we can definitely make scones files more lean and call external Python scripts. So if we want to change, and I guess we want to change the build system, that would be proven helpful. One thing, I have other comments, sorry. So one comment is maybe, I don't know, if you want to track like dependencies that shouldn't be there. I don't know whether this is like an overkill, but I realized that writing a G-test for a sim object is actually a good way because you basically see all the header files that you're actually pulling in.
Daniel did that, and I think that's a PR that we're going to merge soon, right, Bobby?
Yeah, it's like Daniel's done like 99% of all the work, and I think I just need to do the 1% that they've been holding off for like 3 months of doing, but to get it over the line.
That's a good point, John.
I do think there's a lot of I think Jason can already allude to some of this. Like, there's definitely some headers that are just I hate how often you touch a header in Gem5 and you have to recompile literally everything. But I'm not sure whether all that's avoid. Well, certainly some of that is unavoidable. But yeah, definitely something we can do there. Yeah, we're moving in the right direction. I'd say.
So I agree. I
Mm.
think it would be nice to do like a bit of cleanup when it comes to header files. The other thing that we should be taking into consideration is the fact that I believe C++20 introduced the module system. And before we basically get ourselves crazy into header files, we need to consider that as an option as well. Though I honestly believe that if we want to push for C++20, which is something that we could potentially do, we might make things a bit hard for people which are basically running on older systems. And therefore, we'll have to compile with C++20 anyway. So I think like it's like a big change from header files into the module system. So I think if we go, we need to make sure that we actually want to remove some of the support for
I
older
think,
Yeah,
I
thanks
think,
for
systems.
I
bringing
think
that up.
the answer to that really depends on how the GCC and Clang have, how easy it is for people to get a
I was actually
compiler
looking.
that supports that.
There's a lot of I think our minimum compilers actually support C++20 today.
Oh, does it?
I'm
Oh.
pretty sure we can turn standard 20 on. I don't know if they support all the features of 20 like modules, but I'm pretty sure they support standard 20.
Yeah, that's a problem. They sometimes just don't implement everything.
But we can look into that.
yeah.
I think we're very close as far as our minimum compiler support goes, though.
I've had a really hard time defining how we define what the minimum compiler is as well. If anyone's got any concise rules on that, I'd like to hear it. But yeah, I'm all for moving to the next best thing, and yeah.
I have last comment about modularity. One comment I have is in the past I tried to reuse some parts of standard library for some of the configs ARM script, notably the cache hierarchy, because I think the cache hierarchy definition in standard library is better than what we currently have. The problem with that is that that is not modular, because in order to use the cache hierarchy, I basically need to use standard library as a whole. Like I need to define an ARM board specifically as an example. So that is a part I believe that is non-modular. Like you need to buy into, if you want to get an abstraction, you need to buy into all the abstractions. I don't know how easy it is to decouple things.
I mean,
so hold on, Bobby. Hold on.
Yeah.
Feel free to push changes to this Giacomo to change it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I honestly, I don't think I have time at the moment because I'm doing several things. What I'm saying is like if you're looking for a way to make Gem5 more modular, I would say standard library is something that you have lots of experience. So it could potentially be a low-hanging fruit for you if you want to look for modularity. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in case you were looking for ways to make things more modular.
I mean, yeah, we're also busy working on other things. But I think that would be a great project for someone to work on. I don't think we're just going to do it, though.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything particularly negative, only that, yeah, that is a problem. People say, like, it's some people send me scripts where it's like they're trying to import a standard library component into like a very bare bones simulation. And yeah, I know if I can't think of a good way around that, but yeah, I think we're also getting a little bit worse over time in defining what these APIs are between the component and the rest of components, for example, and the rest of Gem5. Which is kind of on me, but yeah, if someone can figure out some API, we can kind of link these two ways of developing Gem5 together. That'd be great. Yeah, but I'm probably not going to work on it.
Okay, are there other things that people want to push for 25.1 that the people in this room should be aware of?
I think I disclosed. Sorry, I'm the only one talking, so I'm gonna silence myself and wait and let other people talk. But I have some stuff, yes, on for 25.1.
Okay. Bobby, do we have a discussion page or something so we can maybe put all this together in a single place?
I can definitely make one.
Can
Aaron,
you make a 25.1 roadmap discussion?
me and Aaron and I have our internal projects page, and we can, yeah, most of them are the kind of issues or draft issues. Yeah, we can
make a discussion, put your stuff in there, and then ping Giacomo so Giacomo can give us a set of bullet points there to add to it.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Does that sound good, Giacomo?
Yep, definitely.
Cool. Anybody else have any plans? Matt, do you have any plans?
Yeah, but nothing super relevant to everyone here.
Okay. I mean,
people might come. Yeah.
If you have plans, it would be nice to publicize them so people are prepared. But yeah, I agree. We don't need to. Yeah. It'd be nice to have a list so we know what we're trying to get done.
Yeah, plans are best developed. I find the moment I announce a staging branch release and everyone decides they've got some great ideas to get into gem5 in 2 weeks, and that's when 90% of the development happens in gem5. It's magic time. But I would like just if you've got any ideas you think, yeah, please let us know.
Okay. Anything else?
I think it, yeah. Literally about anything gem5 related. I guess
Okay.
the project's
I'm
going
not hearing
smoothly.
anything.
Yeah.
So next month we'll do it again on Thursday, but it'll probably be Thursday at like 7 or 8 p.m. Pacific time and morning Asia on Friday is probably what we'll do.
And that for us, Jason, is late at night?
Yeah, so like 7 or 8 p.m. Thursday Pacific is morning time in Asia on Friday. So I know that's going to be impossible for those of you in Europe and very hard if anybody's on the East Coast. But it will be recorded and we'll post the generated notes.
Yep. Does anyone have anything else? Otherwise, I'll give us our last 20 minutes of the hour. Nope. Okay. Next meeting should be on the 14th at the hour that works best for East Asia. And yeah, I'll post the discussions about the release. Please add comments and whatever else you want to say about it. Yeah, otherwise I'll hopefully see you all next month. Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.